while every camera in that stadium was pointed at a heartbroken superstar walking off the track. A 32-year-old woman who once quit the sport entirely to sell technology for a living quietly stepped up to the start line. And what she did over the next 2 laps wiped out a championship record that had survived for 31 straight years. Nobody planned for this story. Nobody saw it coming. And by the time you finish hearing what actually happened in Birmingham, you're going to understand why 3 different women are now fighting for ownership of one of the most brutal events in track and field, and why the next race in London might decide all of it. Before we go any further, if you do not want to miss how this plays out, hit subscribe and turn on notifications right now, because this storyline is moving faster than anyone expected. Let's start with the setting. The UK Athletics Championships, Alexander Stadium, Birmingham, the exact venue that will host the European Championships later this summer. Every athlete on that start list understood the stakes: a national title, a place on the European team, and for some of them, a chance to make a statement before the home crowd comes back in August. The women's 800 meters final was already being talked about as one of the highlights of the entire weekend. Then, just before it began, Keely Hodgkinson pulled out her own 400-meter final, visibly emotional, and the entire mood inside that stadium shifted in an instant. Everyone's attention went one direction, and that is exactly when Georgia Hunter-Bell walked to the line, completely outside the spotlight, about to do something that nobody in that building was prepared for. She is 32 years old, born in Paris, raised in the United Kingdom, and if you think you already know her story, you almost certainly only know the last couple years of it. As a junior, she was genuinely talented, winning a National English Schools title in the 800 meters before she had even hit her mid-teens. She studied at university in Birmingham, the very city she would later make history in, then earned an athletic scholarship in the United States. Injuries followed, and at the exact age when most elite runners are supposed to be entering their best years, she walked away from the sport completely and built a normal career in technology sales. For years, she was not training, not racing, not anywhere near this world. Then the pandemic happened, and almost by accident, she started running again just for fun. Weekend park runs, nothing serious, until one Saturday morning she ran a 5-kilometer time that made her stop and think. That single run was fast enough that she reached out to Trevor Painter, the very same coach who has guided Keely Hodgkinson to Olympic gold and a world indoor record. What happened after that barely makes sense on paper, and I need you to really sit with the timeline here, because it gets faster from this point on. She broke 2 minutes in the 800 meters for the first time in May of 2024. That alone would be a big moment for most athletes. But that same summer, only months later, she stood on an Olympic podium in Paris and won bronze in the 1500 meters, breaking the British record in the process. For years before that, she was not competing at an elite level at all. For years later, she was an Olympic medalist. Then 2025 happened, and instead of leveling off, she kept climbing. Diamond League wins, a UK national title in the 800 meters. Then Tokyo, the World Championships, where she chose to race the 800 over the 1500 and ran a personal best to take silver, finishing just 1/100th of a second ahead of her own training partner, Keely Hodgkinson. 1 year after first breaking 2 minutes, she was the second fastest 800-meter runner alive. She said afterward that she was simply thrilled to have run the best time of her life, knowing she had needed to arrive fresh to have any real chance. And she did not stop there. Early in 2026, she won gold at the World Indoor Championships in the 1500 meters, setting a new British indoor record. In June, she won again at the Diamond League meet in Rome, still racing primarily over 1,500 meters. Then she arrived in Birmingham, stepping back down to the 800, with a championship record sitting there that had not been touched since 1995. Nobody expected what she did next. From the gun, she went straight to the front, through the Bella halfway. Her split was just over 57 seconds, the kind of pace that tells the rest of the field exactly one thing: she was not there to sit and wait. That kind of pace is a gamble, because the second lap of an 800-meter race is brutal, and front runners either pull away from it or they get swallowed whole by it. Right behind her the entire way was Issy Buffy, refusing to let this become a solo run, making the whole thing a real race rather than a procession. Here is what makes this even more remarkable. Hunter Bell had spent most of 2026 racing as a 1,500-meter specialist, with her win in Rome coming only 17 days earlier over that longer distance. Dropping down to the 800, going straight to the front, and betting everything on holding that pace for one more lap was a genuinely risky decision in a national final with her own legacy on the line. So the question hanging over that second lap was simple. Would the pace hold, or would it break her? And then she answered it in the most emphatic way possible. She crossed the line in 1 minute 55.93 seconds, a brand new championship record. The previous mark had stood since 1995, when Kelly Holmes ran 1 minute 57.56. 31 years, gone in one race. She also broke a 10-year-old stadium record in the same run, and nobody behind her even came close to catching up. Issy Buffy took silver in a time under 2 minutes, a genuinely serious run in its own right, and Lucy Armitage claimed bronze with a personal best. On a day that will be remembered for one historic headline time, both of those performances would have led the coverage at almost any other championship. Speaking afterward, Hunter Bell was direct about what it meant to her, saying it was incredibly satisfying to claim a championship record and another national title, that she had been visualizing exactly this moment before she even arrived, and that she has strong memories at that stadium and cannot wait to be back there for the Europeans in a couple of months. That is not someone celebrating a finish line. That is someone already pointing at the next one. So here is where the story gets genuinely dangerous for everyone else in this event, and I need you to remember this part, because it is a whole reason this rivalry is about to explode. The next major race, the London Athletics meet on July 18th, already has 3 names confirmed on that 800-meter start list. Keely Hodgkinson, who is openly chasing the outdoor world record. Audrey Werro, who ran one of the fastest 800 meters in over 40 years just weeks ago in Stockholm. And now Georgia Hunter Bell, who just walked into Birmingham off the back of a 1,500-meter season and erased a 31-year-old championship record almost as an afterthought. 3 women, 3 completely different paths to this moment, all standing on the same start line in a matter of weeks. And after London, the European Championships returned to that exact same stadium in Birmingham in August, the city Hunter Bell studied in, the track she now calls her own, the record she now owns. What happened on Sunday was not a side story buried underneath someone else's withdrawal. It was a signal. The conversation around the women's 800 meters has quietly become a 3-way fight, and the question nobody can answer yet is which one of these 3 women is going to be left holding the title when the dust settles in Birmingham this August. If you want to see exactly how that plays out, you already know what to do. Hit subscribe, because the next chapter of this story is coming faster than anyone expects.